Hi everybody, I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap. Today I'm going to show you a technique that I learned from my good friend Tim Holtz, and when I saw him demonstrate it, I just couldn't resist trying it for myself on some scrapbook pages. I'll bet you can't resist it either. So we're going to make a scrapbook page today, but first we're going to make all the different elements and then you're going to see how they're all going to come together. The first element is going to be a little border strip. What I have here is a 2 by 12 inch piece of glossy white cardstock, but it's not going to be white for long. Now a lot of the tools that I'm going to use right now are from Ranger Industries, and let's start with the alcohol inks themselves. These are the Adirondack alcohol inks. I love them. They come in 24 colors. This is the terracotta that I happen to be using right now. And whenever I'm working with the colors, this is caramel, I like to choose a trio of colors. That's a great way to start. That way you don't have too many colors working into the mix, but you have enough to really add some nice variety. So I have 3 colors of ink. The challenge is, how do I get the ink from the bottle onto the paper without making a huge mess of things and without using way more ink than I need? The solution is actually this alcohol ink applicator by Tim Holtz, and it's very innovative because it saves on ink. It has this little Velcro-like coating on here, and I just attach a piece of felt to it. So the felt is cut to fit the size of the applicator, and all you do to apply the ink is take the nib of the alcohol ink and put the nib onto the tool. Do not squirt the ink from elsewhere, because you might end up with it on your clothing and it really doesn't come out. So notice I'm just squeezing and saturating this. You can experiment with how much ink to apply. Now, I'm just tapping this onto my glossy cardstock, and you can see the color just mixing in and absorbing into the paper. Now, underneath my strip here, I have a non-stick craft sheet, and that's going to protect my work surface from the alcohol ink because, again, it sticks to anything. Now that my entire strip is covered with ink, I'm going to go back and I'm going to give it one more little tap. And look at what happens to that ink. Do you see how it just sort of spreads and expands? I think that's such a cool effect. And that's just one of the properties of this particular ink. And it just really helps finish this up and make it a very interesting looking border strip. Now, isn't that beautiful? I just love how the vibrant colors blend together. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more of an element to this by taking some jet black archival ink and a Club Scrap stamp. This is of a stitching image from a Wild Wild West kit, and I'm just going to go ahead and stamp this image. Now that it's complete, I can go ahead and tie all of these colors together by adding a colorful border strip behind it with some rust paper and then another black behind it, because that ties in the color of the stitched border from the stamp as well. Let's set this aside on our page, and just so that you know what we're layering onto, we have a page here that has that same terracotta color in the background, a layer of black, and a layer of olive. And if you know me, I love paper and I love to use lots of it. So this page is going to use a fair amount, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end. Our next element involves another really fun non-porous surface, dominoes. Now if I turn it over, then you can see I've got a double 2, but that doesn't matter. We're just going to turn it over and use the back side. All right, now I still might have some ink. I'm just going to check. Sure enough, I've got enough ink. You know, I think the mistake people make with the alcohol inks the first time they use them is that they feel they need to use a lot of it, and you don't. These bottles are the original bottles of ink that I had when I bought this set quite a while back, so the ink colors will last. Now look how that ink spreads when you come at it with the second time. Now the next thing is even more clever. This is something that Tim showed me that I just went, wow, that is so cool. And we're going to actually use these dominoes for our page title. And what I'm bringing in here, I'm just setting all these dominoes aside. We're going to focus on this one right here. And I've got an alphabet stamp on my little mount, and I have a jet black ink pad that we're going to be using. It's important that we use this particular type of ink. It's what makes this effect work. I'm inking my stamp. And now I'm going to stamp it onto my domino. And when I pull it away, there's my letter E. And I'm going to actually remove the ink from the letter E. The black ink is no longer there, nor is the alcohol ink. So now I have the first letter of my title, and I use the black ink to actually remove the alcohol ink. And there are the letters that I need for my page title of Emily. Okay. Another element, another fun thing you can use is standard household aluminum flashing tape. You can buy this at your home supply store. It comes on a roll with a lot of it, so there are like tons of things you can make with this stuff. Here's a fun little technique. I've already gone ahead and cut a strip of the flashing tape off the roll, and I've got a piece of mat board here, just regular old mat board. That's a 1/16 of an inch thick. It's 1x4, which fits what I want to use. I'm going to peel the backing away from my flashing tape, and I'll just lay this piece onto it. Now it's not exactly centered, but that will not matter. With the scissors then, I'm going to clip the corners of this piece. All right, so let's get rid of those little triangular pieces, set those aside. And now I'm going to just kind of roll up and flatten. With a bone folder now, I'm just going to come in and smooth this out nicely. And you can even do a nice job of squaring off the edges, and it almost looks like just a flat piece of silver, ready really for anything. Now I have my little piece. Once again, I'll show you. The nib goes right onto the felt. You don't want to risk spraying this out all over the place. Just be careful. As long as the lids are off, you just want to use caution. Inking it again the same way. And notice I'm working with the same 3 colors again, but there are 24 colors, so there are a lot of things you can do. I'm going to just heat this a little bit so that the ink is for sure dry for my next step of the removal process. Here I have a stamp. It just says Discoveries on it. And I'm going to take my ink pad and just ink this up thoroughly. I'm going to stamp right in the center, firm downward pressure, pull up. There's my little caption. And if I just dab it a little bit, I'm going to get some of that ink up, and then I'm going to come in and rub the rest of it away. So there's my little caption, and I'm going to mount it to my page with some ribbon. In order to do that, I'm just going to take a hole punch and just create a spot for that ribbon to go in and out. And then when I have it covered with I've just threaded some ribbon right through here, so when I mount this to the page, it's really going to be a nice accent. One final piece, and that's going to be our title tag. This is just a already commercial made tag. I didn't have to make it myself. And I'll go ahead and just refresh my inks just a little bit. And I'm telling you, once you start working with this, you'll be looking for stuff to ink. Oh, here's some paper clips. Here's some staples. Let me colorize them. All right, here is just going to be a very simple little tag. Once again, and it's incredible how quickly this dries, but even now we'll just rush it along a little bit. And the title of my page is going to be Joy. So I have the letters Joy in rubber stamps on my mount here. So I'll ink those thoroughly and stamp. However, this time, instead of wiping the ink away, I'll heat set it again. I'll top that with some fibers, and then I have a bit of a mess that needs to be dealt with. This is the alcohol blending solution. So you can just squirt some of this out onto your work surface and take a paper towel or a rag or a cloth and watch it make all of that alcohol ink disappear. All right, so here's the finished layout, and it really came together nice. It uses that Wild Wild West kit from Club Scrap. Here's that border that we created at the beginning that's going on along the left side of the page. And we have our aluminum tag here that we kept the ink in place. We didn't resist it away. And then we went down and we attached our title. And for attaching the dominoes to the page, you just need to use an aggressive type of adhesive to hold everything in place. And then down over here, we have that clever little aluminum flashing tape custom tag. And it's just so much fun. You can make your own embellishments, and they cost so much less than the ones you buy at the store. And then, of course, naturally, I added some photos of my daughter at Disneyland here in California. I would just want to show you one other clever thing over on this layout here. Once again, it's titled Emily. Okay, here's my daughter rafting behind the boat, and she was a little bored, so she started dancing around on top of the raft, and I caught a whole series of her in action. But then down over here, you see this clever little tag, and I actually used a die cutting machine to cut out some letters, and I sandwiched those letters in between the aluminum flashing tape and the mat board. I glued them in place, I stuck my flashing tape on top, and then I just brayered it, or I smoothed it out so the letters would be exposed, and then I did my alcohol ink and then that resist technique to reveal that page title. That was another technique that my friend Tim taught me, and it is just ingenious. Lastly, I just have another little card here. These inks work great on any surface. This happens to be a stamp board. It's a clay surface. And once again, those vibrant alcohol ink colors did a great job of providing a wonderful background for this project too. So the bottom line is, if it's non-porous and it's not moving, you can ink it. In fact, there's a table over here I'm going to get working on right away. So I'll see you later. Have fun.
For step-by-step instructions on how to create this week's project, download the design guide featuring special make-it-your-own bonus tips.